How come you stopped music? You said you went to go travel, and then you said you went to all these countries and you did a whole bunch of adventuring around the world. That
Yeah,
sounds
bro.
nifty.
I I stopped because I found myself putting so much fucking pressure on myself to like I wasn't even having fun creating and enjoying the process anymore. I was so worried about like, oh, I'm dropping a song, like how is it going to get out there and all that, and just putting a lot of pressure on myself, stressing out, not having fun with it. I was not going very good mentally, and I must say, just my opinion, I'm guessing you'll agree, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter if it has to do with art or anything. You have to basically just feel good and be at peace and be okay with yourself to do anything. If you're not okay, basically just waking up in the morning, you won't be able to do shit.
Mm.
So I wasn't able to do shit anymore. I was in my head, bro. I call it anxiety press. It was a cycle of anxiety and depression. I was anxiety pressed, nonstop, not doing good, smoking way too much weed, which I have quit now because I used to love it, but it started to make me really anxious, which sucked because it was fun. So yeah, dude, I loved it for years. And then started
Nah, I say that
fucking with.
because like I'm like the opposite. I think because I can afford it. I smoke more weed than I've ever smoked in my life, and there's this weird thing that keeps happening that I smoke weed and good things happen to me. So I'm not recommending people to do it, but it's just incredible how wildly different it can manifest in people. Like when you said that, I'm like, fuck, imagine this shit made me anxious. That would be
Yeah,
terrible.
I mean, I smoked for years. It made me really creative for a while. Like I wrote a lot of songs while I was high. And I had to stop, but I have homies that I used to smoke with a lot that have really awesome jobs that are doing amazing in life who still smoke and it doesn't affect them like that. You know? So it is what it is. You just got to know yourself and know when to
Facts.
stop if you need to. Don't keep going for years and making yourself weird and anxious like I did. Just cut it out if you have to. But to get back to the question, I pretty much I wasn't feeling good. I never officially quit music. I always had in the back of my mind, like, I got to get myself together and keep doing it. But I stopped for a good, like, releasing stuff for a good, like, 3, 4 years and just went off. I went out to Australia at first and worked as a waiter in restaurants in
Okay, hold
Sydney.
on.
Uh,
How
Pardon me?
different is Australia? Is it like if I could, as a waiter and shit, you'd be seeing like people at like a baser level. Like how different is Australia?
To be honest, man, like Aussies love Canadians and vice versa. I think like we're very like just the people like we're very similar, man. Very laid back in general, polite, cool people. But I mean, there definitely is a difference just with the lingo, man. Like their accent and the way they speak, their expressions, very different. The climate, just definitely switches things up. I worked very often just right by the Pacific Ocean, just serving seafood, so it's a bit different than going to work in Montreal at -30 and going into the restaurant and working there. So there's that too, but I mean, it's different because of the weather and the crazy animals there are there
I
and
was
just
gonna
the ocean.
ask, did animals try to kill you?
To be honest, man, people be freaking out about Australia and the spiders and shit and the snakes. Maybe I got lucky, but I never saw like a huge spider or
That is the most
a snake.
comforting thing anybody's ever said to me about Australia. I'd be freaking out
Bro,
about animals popping out the toilet at me if I ever go, bro.
to be honest, man, like I remember like I was staying at my granddad for a while, granddad's place, and I'd see little like lizards, like geckos sometimes, like running up the walls, and like that would happen because they just get in and they're around, but nothing venomous. Like I remember I'd ride to the beach And a few times I saw this sign like beware, like brown snake spotted in the area. And by the way, the brown snake, I believe this is right, is the most venomous snake on earth. So, you know, it's not too comforting when you rock up to the beach and see that, but I never actually saw it or saw a snake. So they're around, but you got to be pretty lucky, man. Like they don't just pop up at you on the street, you know,
That is.
but they're around.
I mean, I guess that's like how it be. I mean, technically, there's turkeys in Montreal right now, and I ain't never seen a turkey, but they're around.
They're around, bro. You know, people definitely see them because it's a thing where people think of Australia and think of all that. But nah, man, they won't jump up at you. And I mean, yeah, Australia is different, but like people, like I said, speak like it's pretty similar, man. Like we get along, and you go to Australia, you say you're from Canada, and they love you already, bro, for real.
That is cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna figure that out. Get down to Australia. But
go do a few. Dude, huge hip hop scene in Australia. Actually, some really cool rappers.
I'm
I'll have to send you some links.
Yeah, I'd be into that. I know I met a dude from there. Like he had been part of like the 90s 2000s Australian scene, and he like gave me shit like, you don't know how spoiled you are, bro. Imagine being in Australia and he gave me like this old man lecture about how hard it used to be and how they paved the way for us to have YouTube, and I'm like, fair. But yo, he was telling me about like how deep the Australian culture, like it goes back like other places. Sorry?
Who is this artist?
C, like CEE.
Don't know him because I know a few sort of like more OG Australian rappers, but no, I've never heard of C. That's
I don't
cool
know
though.
how significant he was in Australia, to be honest, but I know that he's from then. He was part of that wave of people, and he's crushing shit with like consulting on YouTube. Like you might actually recognize him from some ad trying to pitch you on some Wealth Simple. He at some point got a Wealth Simple partnership with his shit. So I was like, oh, you guys are them peoples now. But yeah, he also just dropped an album with some people I know. Like, so like, you know, he's here, but taught me about Australia scene. So you're like out there, you're not that into music, and you said you're working, you're vibing in the life, and then you traveled all over Asia, which I guess is a lot
Yeah,
closer if you're in Australia.
for sure, man. I found some really cheap, like $300 flights from Australia to. So my first trip in Asia was in Vietnam, and then I went to Burma, which is Myanmar, which is a really, really trippy, cool place, which unfortunately is closed off again now because there was a coup d'etat. The military government took over again, and that bullshit. And then I went to India. India, by the way, is my number one favorite country I visited, man. So crazy, diverse. I always say beautifully chaotic. Just a lot of stuff happening. And I also went to Nepal. So all those countries I was going to, really just enjoying being out there, and it was cheap, and immersing into different cultures, and not telling myself anything in the morning like I gotta accomplish this or do this. I was just living, man. I had saved up some money. I was traveling, meeting cool people. I actually traveled with a couple in Asia who I'd met in Australia. So that whole sort of like 3 years of my life was just, I was having fun, but I was also going through a lot personally and just trying to figure that out. And it was a decent way to do it. You know, it wasn't too stressful. I was working restaurant jobs, going out to Asia, and it was Asia, especially India, was a big eye opener, and I think was very therapeutic just to see how people live there and the degree of poverty and contrasts and stuff. So it's definitely a chapter in my life that I think I had to go through. I do not want to be there in my head again because it was fucked.
So,
But
bro, you literally lived in Eat, Pray, Love.
What's that?
I don't know if you remember Eat, Pray, Love, but I just read that shit, and you lived the Eat, Pray, Love story.
I've never heard of Eat, Pray, Love, but I think I'm getting.
Yo, she travels and she lives life and discovers shit and gets over shit, and she had heartbreak, and in her case, she ate, she prayed, and she loved, and each of these represented a different location she was at, and shit was like hot when you were too young to care. I promise you were, because in hindsight, yeah, you were a little too young maybe to care, but shit was hot. It was like before The Secret. it was like The Secret before The Secret. Like The Secret was like the new Eat, Pray, Love.
I read The Secret a few months ago. I liked it, man. I liked it. Okay, Eat, Pray, Love is like the okay, like the OG Secret.
Yeah, which
Interesting.
is just like how to win friends and influence and people and shit, but like just in
Uh,
2020, you know, like that's all. They're all the same book. Like if you ever read them, like they're all the
you,
same.